Hi, my name is Daniel Dempster. I played Magmortar at the Portland Regional Championships this weekend. I just wanted to give you my take and some of the reasons on why I played the deck and how fun it was. Originally, I loved the cloth deck last format, so I kind of took inspiration from some of the things that capitalized in the meta. You know, no Fez, abusing Budew, and that's kind of where I got my start. Very, very much fun. And to be honest, I don't think I've had so much fun and had so many people around me enjoying the game of Pokemon in a really long time. So it was well worth it. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I'll get into the list a little bit and then into some of the plays and how their event went for me. One Ursaluna EX, one Fezandipity EX, two Latias EX, two Volcanion EX, three Budew All-Star, four Magmar, and four Magmortar. Into the supporters, we have one Penny, two Surfer, two Research, three Boss's Orders, four Arven, four Iono. Probably the best supporter in the game right now. Into the items, one Precious Trolley, insane card, one Counter Catcher, two Nest Ball, three Night Stretcher, three Ultra Ball, and four Switch cards. Onto the tools, one TM Evo, two Defiance Band, and three Bravery Charm. And onto the energy line, three Reversal and four Jet Energies. And that's the 60. So now we can talk a little bit about some of the niche plays and kind of the point of the deck. So Magmortar's ability is during Pokemon Checkup, put 3 more damage counters on your opponent's burned Pokemon. A lot of people ask to read this card for obvious reasons. Nobody knows what Magmortars do. Hopefully they do now. The most common question that I think I got asked and that most people didn't really understand was that Magmortar stacks. A lot of people thought it worked like Hisuian Sneasler, except Hisuian Sneasler was a Radiant Pokemon and you can only have one. You can have multiple Magmortar. Once people figured out that they stack, they started to realize that burn was kind of a problem. By no means do I think it's amazing, but it certainly is a lot of fun. So the idea is that they remain in item lock after turn 1 for the entirety of the game by stacking Budew damage with burn damage. So effectively taking out Fezandipity draw and items is reducing most decks by at least a third. We wanted to capitalize on not being able to bring back energies from the discard with stuff like Night Stretcher and recapitalizing Pokemon from the discard with Night Stretcher, also one of the best cards in the game. So by utilizing Budew to stop items and the burn for the primary of the damage was really effective. We learned 3 Magmortar is the sweet spot, 2 works just fine. With 2 Magmortar on the board and a Budew, you're doing 90 damage. You're killing Dracloaks, and you're stopping their draw. With Magmortar's ability stacking, unlike having multiple Radiant Sneaslers in the last format, 3, 6, 9, we consider Volcanion 2. It gets us to the good points, the good numbers, 90 damage, 110, killing Monkey Dories, always great. The biggest thing with the burn, to be honest, is the swing back. If they're flipping tails, it really puts them on the back foot, especially against Dragapult. I was 4-0 against Dragapult. They don't have the ability to accelerate energy fast enough without retreating, and they can't Phantom Dive enough in the game to put enough damage on board to take those big turns, especially without Counter Catcher. It's really, really tough for Dragapult to get around the Budew with the burn. To be honest, when I started, I didn't think the burn ramp was going to be as effective as it actually truly was. But all in all, the deck is very simple. Establish Budew, burn, Budew, switch, Itchy Pollen, switch, Itchy Pollen, until you get to a state where your Bear finishes. Bear is an amazing card in this deck because its damage is not capped at 240. When you have cards with the burn, you can now stack 2 Magmortar for 320. Perfect numbers for Dragapult, perfect numbers for a Gardevoir. 3 Magmortars and a Bear is 350 and you're knocking out anything in the game. So Bear can close out on any big attacker, any big Mon, besides maybe a Blissey with a cape. And in that case, well, thankfully we didn't see any Blissey, chat. We didn't see any Blissey, so it's okay. Besides that, Fez is great in a lot of matchups. If you just want to set up 2 Magmortar, you get there a lot if you're in trades. Forces your consistency to find Budews and way to recoup Budew a lot better, but I found throughout playing that I preferred to have 3 Magmortar and run on the gas of my supporters and rely on Fez a little later in desperation when I was looking for, you know, a Blood Moon or something else, or when I was in really, really tough spots. So 3 Magmortars was also nice. If you missed Budew, you could drag up a monkey and just burn it for 110 and remove it from the board, which is oddly quite effective. Now, Magmortar, I've seen a couple comments on people saying you don't use Searing Flame. Now, a Searing Flame does 90, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon's now burned. There is times where Volcanion's not on the board and you can flip or burn and it's hugely effective. 90 plus 3 Magmortars is 200. You can kill a Pikachu with a single reversal energy if you're losing. 2 in a Defiance Band, you can effectively do the same amount of damage. With 3 in a Defiance Band, you're one-shotting Iron Hands. So if against Joltik Box, they power up, you take your 1 prize on Joltik, they come up, they take 2 prizes on your Budew, you bring up a Magmortar, and you can swing in and take out their Iron Hands, effectively removing majority of their energy and leaving a 1 prizer in the active. And now it forces them in a situation where they got a Boss or Crispin next turn, and they just can't, they gotta choose one or the other. Magmortar is also a very big part of the Raging Bolt matchup because a lot of the Raging Bolts cut Boss's orders. Their only switch card is Prime Catcher. So you force them to go through Budews until they can't no more. So you effectively can get to 3 prizes. And once they're on 3 prizes, you can bring up a Teal Mask with a Magmortar, one-shot the Teal Mask with an Iono play while setting up a Bear for the return. And it sets up a lot of checkmate situations I found. Yeah, it worked really well for me on the weekend. So Searing Flame, way better attack than people think. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's all there really is to it, to the Pokemon. Main board state setup, I would say Budew, Volcanion, Latias, triple Magmortar. That's what you want. And then you just recycle every turn. You get into the energies a little bit, just because it's simple and we'll get through it quickly. 3 Reversal and 4 Jet. Jet's pretty obvious, lets you manipulate being able to activate Burn if they flip the Peds on Burn and heal, so you can effectively always burn. Jet Energy also is usable to get around Budew Lock, which this deck always wins the Budew battle. They don't win with Burn. It's awesome. Whenever they start a Budew, a Cleffa, or a Joltik in the active too, going first and passing, it's a free knockout under item lock, and they don't even get to use the Babymon, which is awesome. Happened quite a bit on the weekend as well. 3 Reversal. For the most part, you only really need 1 for Magmar. You only usually need to get off 1 attack. You want to find it, and you also need energies for Bear, and you also need energies for Evo Tool. So I decided on 3 of those instead of 4. 4 was too much. I found 3 was enough where I found it, enough to use it, but not too much where they got out of hand. Good split. If Reversal's active, Defiance Band is active. Kind of makes sense for the Magmar package when you're behind. Get into the tools. TM Evo, honestly, probably one of the best tools in the game right now. Don't use it as often as people think. Item lock is far more important than TM Evo is, with all the draw and Ultra Balls. Setting up the 2 to 3 Magmars that you need, or Magmortars you need, isn't actually as difficult as it seems. Where TM Evo really shines is it creates the ability to donk. If your opponent has a poor start with a 70 or 80 HP or less, you can burn and then Evo 2 Magmars to do 80 during checkup. It also can let you push to more Magmortars for burn damage if you need it, or if you just don't got Budew. It's just a great setup option with Harvin. There's also times against Joltik Box that Joltik players will put all 4 energies onto an Iron Hands instead of the spread between Pikachu and Iron Hands. And in that case, I'll leave Magmortar in the active and force them to use a boss for 2 prizes or hit my active Magmortar. But I can also protect my Magmars to 130 HP that way and force them to also find their future booster to do the 140 for 2 prizes as well. So it can kind of counter Joltik plays as well, which is just awesome. So that's the main reason for Evo Tool. Also why it works okay with the minimal energies, because it's really not the main play. It's just opens up a lot of little niche plays that are really effective. 2 Defiance Band. Originally was testing 1, but found I needed 1 for Magmar and 1 for Budew. At some point in the game, Budew always needed 1 and Magmar always needed 1. Magmar, I forgot to mention, can one-shot Gholdengos as well with Defiance Band, which is also quite important. I just didn't hit any Gholdengos on the weekend, which I kind of wish I did, but that's also why it's there. Defiance Band on Budew is really great against Charizard. Lets me 2 shots Charizard under item lock and burn, and then it's almost impossible for them to get their energies back and there's not much they can really do from there, besides losing out on Rare Candy and everything else Charizard needs to run right now. And that goes for Mamoswine, the Grimmsnarl, even though that's not out yet, but through testing on live, it works quite well against Grimmsnarl because it's weak to grass. So Defiance Band 1 wasn't enough, 2 was great. Bravery Charm, this card was insane in this deck. I originally ran 2, bumped it to 3. Budew at 80 HP, no Fan Rotom, no Jet Headbutt, no Monkey Dory. Raging Bolts were forced to use 2 energies to discard to kill a Budew. Baby Bolts needed 3 energies to kill Budews, and it forced so much more work on the Budew. But besides from the Budew, what I was also doing very effectively was waiting for Dragapult to Phantom Dive and spread damage out to my Latias and my Volcanion, and then I'd throw Bravery Charms on either one of those, taking away that 4-prize boss turn because they're never going to get Counter Catcher. Effectively forcing Dragapults into choosing, do I want to boss this turn or do I want to spend a supporter to try and set up? And without being able to use Arvins for setup and not being able to use their bosses without having energies because they can't find their energies on time or get them back, it just forced them into a lot of Jet Headbutt turns, and they hated that. A lot. So yeah, 3 Bravery was really, really good. I would not use Cape. I've thought about it, protecting Magmortars, but I think the 2-prize liability is just too great. Get into some of the items. So we're gonna go start with Precious Trolley because this card's insane. Prized it once all day. Unfortunately, that one game I prized it, I would have donked. But that's the way it goes, but it was there. It creates space in the deck for consistency. It gets your start going right away, and once you're off and running, you're kind of just going. 1 Counter Catcher, playing 4 Arvin, just makes sense to play a Counter Catcher. Counter Catcher Iono plays are really strong. Kind of manipulate how the prize trade works a lot of the time too, being your Budews can get knocked out and you kind of play comeback games a lot. It's not uncommon that I'm playing 6-to-1 prize races against Raging Bolt and having that Iono stick long enough for me to win. So Counter Catcher is great to remove the threat at time. 2 Nest Ball. You know, there's enough Genesect out there that you still need to be able to set up and still be able to play the game when you prize Trolley. Once again, with the amount of draw that's in the deck and how simple it is to really play, you're kind of set up early even if you don't have the Trolley, enough where you can get going and you're slowing your opponent down enough with Budews that you're kind of stifling their setup as well, so you have enough time to kind of get going. And you usually have option to Fez and they don't. So you're taking away a lot of cards that they like to use to set up and push their gas, and you're just taking them away, make them go more traditional. 3 Night Stretcher. Card is really good. Effectively gives you 5 to 6 Budews. It lets you get your bear back if you need it. Effectively, it's just 3 more Pokemon from your discard at any point. Obviously, there's no energy to get back with it, so it's solely there as a Pokemon retriever. And yeah, I mean, card was really, really good all weekend long. Can't complain. 3 Ultra Ball. Just an overall consistency card. Find more Magmortars, find whatever you need at the time, get rid of dead cards in your hand. I've thought about cutting 1 for a single Brock Scouting because it can effectively do the same thing without the discard and under Budew Lock. That's something I thought about trying, but I hadn't really got around to it. And to be honest, I didn't really have any issues with the Ultra Balls. So kind of prettier too, so. And 4 Switch cards. Cards also really good, besides being under Budew Lock. It lets you continue your burning. It combos with boss's orders extremely well, so you can target down things on the bench like Dracloaks, Kirlias, Ralts, Hoots, anything of the nature that you kind of just want to target down and get away, Monkey Dories. Beyond that, late in the game, it can let you push every turn for Bear. Because you play so many switch cards, once Bear's active, he's swinging every turn. There's no question about that. On top of that, it can also burn damage with Bear. So Bear on board is kind of a force, and it creates some pretty good situations for you. I haven't been a huge fan of the late game Bear strategy in the past, and I usually cut it because I can find something else that can kind of fill in the same spot. But in this deck, the late game Bear aggressor is really good and very necessary. And onto the supporter line. For Iono, like I mentioned, this card is just way too good right now. There's a lot of draw in the game for Dragapult and games and Fez, and to force your opponent to restart over as they get deeper into the game is really strong, especially when you're denying Fez. So yeah, you want 4 because you want to have it when you need it, and you want to be able to find them when you need them. 4 Arvin, once again, this card is really, really good. Gives you an extra 4 chances at your Trolley in your opening hand, it finds you pretty much an option for whatever you want. You need more damage, you can get Defiance Band. You need more health, you can get Bravery Charm. You need more burn damage, you can get Evo Tool. You need a switch to get burn, you can get Switch. You need a boss's orders, you can find your counter catcher. You need another Budew, you can get one from the discard of the deck. You need to find Bear, you can get your Bear from the discard of the deck. There was not a single game where I didn't love seeing multiple Arvins in my hand, because Arvin meant I could make a play every single turn, no matter what. Card is also really, really, really good in this deck. 3 boss's orders, really wish I had space for 4. Card is also just really, really good. Being able to target down whatever you want, and knowing that you're killing them with Budews and they're probably not going to get that card back or the energies back for the rest of the game is just really, really strong. And there was a couple games where I needed a boss and I couldn't quite find it soon enough, or a couple games where I found it just fast enough. I would have really liked a 4th boss. 2 Professor's Research, you just need to refill your hand sometimes. Sometimes you just need to dig. Switch cards, set up. Budew is a card. And yeah, 2 is the sweet spot. 1, I didn't see it enough, and 2, I find it enough where it keeps me going. 3, I felt I discarded too many resources because of the heavy supporter count that's already there. I played 2 Surfer, mainly there to refill your hand if you're getting low on switch outs, but also another switch out under Budew Lock. So it's not so heavy on just the jet energies. And it's just kind of a cool inclusion. I got a couple of regional stamped ones and I thought I'd never use them, and here we are. So that's kind of cool. I am contemplating on cutting one for a Pal Pad. Give me a 5th Iono, up to 5 boss, returns the Surfer. It might give me a little bit more tech options and abilities in going later into the game, or if I have to discard stuff early for research. And that's maybe the only change I would actually make from the weekend, is maybe 1 Surfer on Pal Pad, because Pal Pad would also actually go really well with the 1 penny. This used to be a 3rd Surfer. I cut it for a penny for a couple of reasons. I found there was enough times where a Surfer, I'd play it for a switch, but I'd have too many cards in my hand and I wasn't drawing anyways. So the draw effect was kind of nullified, where I found penny was really good in moving damage off of a Volcanion that took a big hit from a Phantom Dive, or against Frostlass Monkey Dory, they like to stack up and move damage onto Latias or Volcanion, and I could pick it up, and removing that damage off the board was enough of a prize denial where they couldn't recover. Beyond that, I found it was really, really good with Volcanion. It acts as a switch card because you're able to retreat, pick up your Volcanion in the active. But what it really does is it lets you pick up Volcanion with jet energy. 1, 2, 3, 4, however many jet energies you've used on your Volcanion, and it lets you reuse your jet energies. So there's also an argument where the 2nd Surfer could be a 2nd penny over a 2nd Pal Pad as well. I just figured the Pal Pad would be a penny, a Surfer, a boss, an Iono, and it'd give me a little bit more options, is why I was leaning more towards the Pal Pad over a 2nd penny. But yeah, that's the main list and the main reasonings for the inclusions. I'm going to talk a little bit about my plan going into Raging Bolt, since that deck's been extremely popular and I was expecting to see quite a bit of it. So it's one of the decks I prepared for. You want to go second. You always want to go second with this deck. It's incredibly obvious. That being said, going first is okay, because you just get to auto burn something for some free damage. In the Raging Bolt matchup, it's very important that you get at least 2 Magmortar up. Don't really need 3. The 80 burn damage works really well against the Raging Bolt with the 240 health. You do your 90, 80 burn. If they flip a tails, they're now forced to retreat, heal the burn, take 80 back, and then the 80 back into their turn knocks out. And it's a 2 Budew for a Raging Bolt trade, which I'm willing to take all day long. That's 2 prizes for 2 prizes. That being said, Raging Bolt's an auto loss if they are playing Ancient Booster Capsule. This deck does not do well and play well against Ancient Booster Capsule whatsoever. So if they are an oddball list that is playing that over Bravery Charm, you might be in for some trouble. In that case, you really want to lean into 3 Magmortar, because you're really going to need Magmortars playing the 2 prize trade. You got to abandon item lock, and you got to target down Teal Masks every turn. Magmortar, Teal Mask, get behind, Magmortar, Teal Mask, finish off with Bear. And it's a really tough battle to make, but that's just kind of where you're at if they're playing Ancient Boosters. Thankfully, the Raging Bolt player I played against was not playing Ancient Boosters, so my lines worked out extremely well for me. Once you're at the 4-4 trade, it's pretty simple. You item lock again. They primarily rely on Prime Catcher as their switch. Under item lock, they can't abuse their Prime Catcher, So at that point, they're forced to take a prize and go into the odd prizing. And once you're at the 4-3 prize trade, it's the sweet spot against Raging Bolt. You're able to target down the Teal Mask. A lot of them have gone to 1 Teal Mask. So by knocking it out with your Magmortar at this point, you're effectively removing the Hoot comeback play, especially if you're pairing it with a boss's orders. 1 Magmortar with burn is enough to kill a Teal Mask. You're doing 180 with the weakness, and then the extra 50 for burn, knocking it out, not a problem. At that point, they can use their switch and their prime catcher if they want. You got 3 prizes. They can't take a 3-prize turn. Probably gonna knock out your Magmortar, your Volcanion, which is perfectly fine. That's what you want them to do. That way you don't need to pair an energy with your Roaring Moon. You can find your Moon and take an active knockout. If they do kill the Volcanion and they have a Bravery Charm, then you need to kind of source out a Volcanion and a couple switch cards to kind of get yourself there. But I haven't had that issue yet. You can also, at that point, if they take a 2-prize turn by playing Prime Catcher, you still have a Magmortar that's ready to go. And they went from 3 to 1, and you're at 2. So it opens up boss on Teal Mask again if they've played another one of those. If you have enough burn, you could potentially get your burn back and kill Fez or Latias with burn and Defiance Band to clean up as well. And those are situations where the Magmortar can actually race at the end against Raging Bolt, and I found with those couple of lines I actually felt really confident into the Raging Bolt matchup as the deck currently sits. Kind of wish I'd seen a little bit more of them, to be honest with you, but that's okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have for the lines for the Raging Bolt. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I wouldn't really veer off of that. So we'll talk a little bit about Joltik Box and how I approach that matchup. So obviously they're both decks that want to go second. So the die roll is pretty important in this matchup. If you do win the die roll and you're able to go second, you just have a huge advantage because they're not going to accelerate energy. If they leave Joltik in the active, you're going to burn it and you're going to Budew it, removing that Joltik and forcing them to find a second Joltik without using Night Stretcher to be able to recover the one that's in their discard. So you might effectively be able to remove all their energy acceleration before they can even get started, which is hugely effective. If you start cards like Latias Blind or Budew Blind, they often do it because they don't know what you're playing. Sudden you go Trolley, board, knockout, and they're like, oh no. So now they're relying on Crispin for the rest of the game, or they're just 2 turns behind because now I'm killing 2 Joltiks with a single Budew, and that's not where they want to be either. So like that is a big part of that matchup. I do think if I go second, I'm hugely favored into the matchup. That being said, if they go second, I can start with Volcanion, burn Joltik. Now they're in a situation, do we want to retreat Joltik and do a second Joltik and double Joltik their bench? Do they flip heads? If they want to energize, they get a knockout, then they got to promote something that I get to swing into, which happens quite often. When they energize with Joltik, it really depends on how they energize. They should be energizing 3 hands, 1 Pikachu, opening up Crispin multiple plays so they have access to Pikachu and Iron Hands. A lot of them I found just powered up Iron Hands, which let me open up Volcanion plays to just kind of take hits and use Evo Tool. Beyond that, if they power up Iron Hands, if you hit Iron Hands first with 110 burn, 10 is 120, and they flip a tails, they got to take 2 prizes and let their Iron Hands get knocked out on the backswing. So they're in a situation where they got to retreat it. If they don't have Latias, they're paying all that energy they just leveled up, or they're trading an Iron Hands for a Budew, which I'll take that trade all day long. So there's a lot of times where I'll leave the Joltik and I'll boss up the Iron Hands if I have a full setup early, and I'll Itchy Pollen, and I'll trade a Budew for an Iron Hands, or I'll risk the coin flip. Because even if they hit a heads and they heal and they take 2 prizes, the next Itchy Pollen is still going to do 120 and kill that Iron Hands anyways. So effectively, you're removing an Iron Hands for a Budew with a boss's orders, and removing 4 energies off the board. And now it's 4 energies less they have, and they're not playing Super Rods and they're not recovering them, and now they're struggling again. Alternatively, that play is not there and they're able to come up and take your Budew. You Joltik 1, you go to 5. They Iron Hands, Ampy very much, go to 4, and that's when Magmortar can come up and do some work. With the burn, Magmortar will come up with the Defiance Band, with 3 Magmortars and one-shot a Iron Hands, effectively neutralizing the trade. And at that point, if they've energized their Pikachu, they have an opportunity to boss a Volcanion and burn the rest of their energies, which also is okay. because then Magmortar can come back up and swing on the Pikachu because they haven't dealt with the actual threat and effectively bringing that trade back. If they're not, I find at this point they struggle a lot to energize. And at this point in the game, Ionos are hugely effective against them once they're down to 3, 2, 1 prizes. Iono plus Bear is extremely hard for them to get over, hard to power up a Pikachu at that point, and you kind of just abuse the fact that they don't have a draw engine. And your burn just kind of gets there. And 110 burn on the swing back, it adds up quick. It's very, very, very annoying. So like in the Joltik matchup, I find you're pretty solid. You don't need the item lock as much since they're pretty supporter heavy. So you can lean into more of a prize trade and kind of rest the Budew a little bit. There is games where I will either start the Bear because it's my only basic, or early, I'll just start throwing energies on the Bear. -1 Magmotar and I'll throw an energy on a Bear, and now they're trying to deal with Bear as it's being powered up. Every time they kill something, they're adding to the Bear, and it becomes an extra thing they have to think about. And if I can get 2 swings with Bear, well, that game's probably over as well for a prize trade. So that's also a route that you can go against the Joltik box. You can also use Bear to just block hands with Evo tool and then penny it up later, or retreat it, come back after if you don't think they have a boss or a way around it and they don't have Pikachu. Bear is also, once again, very important for that matchup and every matchup really. All right, I didn't play any Gholdengo. I'll talk a little bit about the matchup though, because I did practice it a bit because I actually expected to see some. It is kind of annoying that it has grass resistance. That being said, you just rely on the burn. The burn and the item lock is more than enough to deal with Gholdengo for the most part. They struggle to get going. You can target down Gimme Ghouls with the multiple bosses orders. You can bring up other Gholdengos that don't have energy once you know all their metal energies have been exhausted, and you can just let the burn kind of do its work with the item lock. You can also get to a point, once again, just like the Raging Bolt matchup, where if they're at 4 prizes and you get to 3 prizes, you can do that Magmortar Bear trade again. Magmortar plus on its own plus 2 Magmortars is perfect 260. With Defiance Band on its own, with just 1 Magmortar is enough to take out a Gholdengo. Magmortar can help race back against Gholdengo if they get way too far ahead because of the fire weakness. So it's just, it gets there, but they struggle so much with item lock and late game Ionos. I found I didn't really struggle with that matchup. There was the odd game with the Dragapult version that I found was a little tough if they focused on powering up double Dragapults and sacrificing a Gholdengo to just draw, because they have enough draw where they can kind of just get set up. So I found in that matchup, I really do what I can to target down the Dreepies and the Dracloaks to remove that threat. Dangos, they can kill whatever they want really. With Gholdengo, I don't really care actually. In the long run, I can deal with the Dangos. The Dragapults are a little tougher. I also find it's really important to deal with the Monkey Dory in that matchup because of the resistance on the Gholdengo. You can't really utilize Defiance Band on Budew for the extra damage if you're behind. You can get a little bit, but not a ton. And I find like Monkey can heal himself enough where it can get annoying. So I like to kind of just remove that. If the Dark Energy's in the discard, it's not a big deal as well because you're item locking, they can't get back. For the most part, the Gholdengo matchup is fine. Everything's dying to burn. Nobody's ever getting Pheasantipity or EXP share or Legacy Energy. None of them shenanigans are happening against this deck. It's quite a beautiful thing actually. Unfair stamp, never been unfair stamped. It's really great. With Dragapult, this matchup is kind of fun. It's really annoying if they get lots of Dracloaks up. We all know it. Start killing those Dracloaks, like come on, right? Fortunately, I've found with Dragapult that they rely on so many pieces, whether it's Dragapult, a Psychic Energy, a Fire Energy, they just need a lot. So when they're under constant item lock, they just are constantly working for their setup. And with 3 Magmortar, the 110 burn is very, very effective. It really targets down their energy line. Most of them are running 6, most are running 8. So when you put 110 burn on them and they got to flip a coin, If they flip a tails, they're forced into a situation where they got to retreat to heal, or they just lose Dragapult coming back into them. And with how much they've invested and how much time they've invested in setting up that Dragapult throughout the game, to just lose it to an Itchy Pollen and some burn is incredibly tough. And then not to get any of the benefits from it, like the EXP share, Unfair Stamp if they're playing it, Pheasantipity just set up another one. So it really puts a lot of stress on their Brock Scouting. And I find in that matchup, Brock Scouting just can't do it all. They're playing Ionos to refill my hand, fueling my setup, because they're all playing 4 Iono. Boss's Orders is able to target down Dracloaks with energy, removing energy from the game, removing draw engines from the game, and inevitably removing any chance they have of getting to Dragapults to string Phantom Dives. If you can't string Phantom Dives, you can't win. I think I was Phantom Dived 3 times at most in a single game, and that's just not going to cut it when 2 of them are on Budews. I found that overwhelming burn was more effective with item lock against Dragapult because they relied so much on Arven per setup to find Vessel, to find Ultra Ball, to find Night Stretcher, find EXP share, to keep their attack stringing going. And you really take a lot of that away, and they really are focusing on setting up. And by the time they set up, you've already taken 3 prizes. And at that point, you're kind of just in the driver's seat. You don't even need to rush anymore because you always know a bear at any point with 2 Magmortars and a burn is 320, and you're taking out a Dragapult. As long as you can prevent the big 4 prize turn, which is what the pennies and the extra Bravery Charm plays after they're setting up are for. You're trying to bait them into setting up a 4 prize turn, and you're taking it away with them with Bravery Charms, with pennies, and forcing them to take 1 prize turns or retreat. And I mean, they can only do it for so long. Yeah, once they're gone, they're gone. If they've prized awful, did happen to me a couple times. My Dragapult players, prized 2 Psychic or 2 Fire. It put that much more strain being under item lock. So it was just incredibly effective. One Dragapult player I played did play Grand Tree. That was interesting because he also played Pidgeot, and that was a build I didn't test against. So I was kind of curious of how that was going to play out, knowing that he could find any card he wanted every turn. Somehow I got there, not entirely sure how, but all in all, the matchup feels really, really good. I also came to the conclusion of not playing any stadiums in the deck. There wasn't really a stadium that was perfect for the deck, so I just cut them entirely. That did put me at risk for a couple of cards. Festival Lead, or Festival Ground? I think it's Festival Ground. But I was like, who plays that card? Like, right? Who plays Magmortar? So League HQ is kind of annoying, and that has been seeing a rise in popularity. Only 7 energies in Budew. So there was no way I was gonna remove it. Jamming Tower, also annoying. But I figured I can deal with a little annoyance if I was taking away all their items. I thought it was a fair trade. I figured they'd be dealing with a lot more annoyance than me. With League HQ, you kind of just lean a little bit more into Volcanion and just burning. You kind of sacrifice item lock. But yeah, you just lean more into burning. You can go 4 Magmortar to get up to, 140 damage with burn, but it also lets you lean into Magmortar as an attacker with reversal energies as well because it's not affected by League HQ being an evolution Pokemon. So that's kind of how I approach those matchups. Thankfully, I didn't see any League HQ the entire weekend, so I kind of got a little fortunate. The only stadium that I saw all weekend that I was a little afraid of was Grand Tree because you can kind of just run rampant with that, but thankfully he used it once and then removed it. And I was like, very nice. And then he gave me Artisan. I couldn't complain. I was like, thanks for my free Budews, So yeah, no, I would have used Grand Tree, but maybe that's why he removed it. He didn't want me just to start setting up Magmars, but they were already set up. I found in that matchup after game 1, I targeted down the Pidgeys really quick. You can have Grand Tree into Dragapult, but not Grand Tree into Pidgeotto or Pidgeot. Having any card you want every turn is just too strong. It was the Colress Tenacities finding the energies. I think he was actually able to play because the deck was supporter heavy. He had a lot of Brock Scouting and Colress Tenacities and Stadiums. And yeah, it was actually a really interesting list for the most part. But yeah, I mean, I would love to have a stadium for the deck. There's just nothing that seems right and nothing that hurts me enough right now that I care. All right, I'll talk how I approach Gardevoir. Gardevoir lists have changed a lot recently, so it's, you never really know which Guardy you're gonna get. Didn't really know which kind of Guardies I was gonna get this weekend. I only played 1. I did lose. I didn't draw very well in that matchup, and they had the Professor Research gas, so to speak, every turn, just popping them researches. So Usually, they're not so heavy on the Evo tool, which they were this weekend. So I imagine if I played more with the Evo tool, I probably would have struggled a bit more because it gets around the item lock. But a lot of Guardies run on a lot of items to get set up right now, whether it's Rare Candy, Ultra Ball, Nest Ball, Vessel, Night Stretcher. So in the Gardevoir matchup, I really just tried to set up 2 Magmortars and a Budew and target down the Ralts and the Kirlias early, as under item lock, they can't get them back. So if you're able to deal with the Ralts and Kirlias early enough, they might not ever get to Gardevoir. By stringing through item lock, you potentially could slow them down on spamming Ralts in a turn, and maybe they can only get 2. You remove one, they go to Kirlia, remove their Kirlia, they go to a Ralts, and you can maybe try and remove them. If they do get to Gardevoir, it is kind of annoying. Gardevoir heals itself if it's an attacker, so your burn never sticks coming back into you ever. You only ever get 1 turn of burn if it's the aggressor. And then they have Monkey Dories, so you just can't ever deal with the Gardevoir, unfortunately, if they get there. So a good Guardy player would sit, or should sit on Guardy in the active and just kind of be annoying that way. Where the 3rd boss or 4th boss really comes into play, and why the pal pad and stuff is because in that situation, you just want to boss around the Guardy every turn. Kill a Monkey Dory, 3/10 burn, gone. And that way your burn damage can stick on the Guardy eventually, because they can't counter catcher, right? You know, they're heavy counter catchers, not heavy boss. They want to Iono boss you, or Iono counter catcher you, sorry. They can't do that under Budew. So if you can take down the monkeys with the Budews, by the time they've dealt with all the Budews, you're probably in a situation where you can one-shot the Guardy with the bear. That's the general idea. They're limited to the attackers they can use. You know, they want to use Scream Tail, they're going to lose their Scream Tail to an item lock attack, and they can't get Scream Tail back. So a lot of these attackers, they can only use 1 time. They can't re-abuse their attackers. So they're not going to sit there with Scream Tail, kill your Volcanion, and then kill your Latios. Unless they're running multiple Scream Tail, then you're in trouble. If they are running Klefki, don't know. Didn't really see it, so I haven't really approached that, to be honest. And same with Fluttermane. I imagine with Fluttermane, it'd be a Magmortar angle and maybe hope for the best. Thankfully, we didn't see either of those, but that's kind of why I felt like this deck was a decent play, is a lot of those cards are down right now, not up. The Gardevoir matchup is just generally frustrating. It all depends on the setup. Sometimes Gardevoir will start with a 4-start going first and end with a single Ralts in the active, and that's an opportunity where I'll actually avoid the item lock, and I'll try the Evo double burn play and trying to remove the Ralts and go from there, because then they're either going to retrieve that one or bring up another one, and then they're under item lock, and it makes it easier to keep removing them. You kind of got to gauge the situation play, because item lock, you miss a turn item lock, now they have 5 energies in their discard and they're off and rolling. Because there's times they can get set up, but they can't ever find energies because they're under item lock. And if they can't find the energies, it doesn't really matter if they're set up, right? You're just going to win anyways. So that's a big part of it as well. I'll talk a little bit about the Zoroark matchup since I tested it. Didn't play against any, but I expected to see them. Honestly, the matchup is pretty good. They have a hard time setting up early under item lock. They have a hard time accelerating energies without having access to End's PP up. So really the most important card you're worried about in that matchup is honestly the Powder Glass. The Powder Glass is very strong. Mako and Powder Glass just runs you out of the game. That's kind of why the deck is powerful right now. It's why one of the reasons why Evo Tool is good. If I need to go Volcanion, Evo Tool can protect my Magmars quickly and get the burn rolling. Rush Ram doesn't really bother me. I don't mind building up damage on the Zoroarks because they have too much of a hard time accelerating energies to them fast enough before the damage becomes effective. With the 3 Magmortars up, you put them in that situation again where they gotta flip a coin, flip tails, then they have to retreat and they can't attack, or they die coming back into their turn. Itchy Pollen into Zoruras is really effective, being that it's weak to grass. I only need to have 1 Magmortar up to start targeting Zoruras because I get that extra 10 damage from Itchy Pollen. It's actually making my math from 60 to 70. So I can kind of cheat a little bit against Zoroark to kill Zoruras before they can even kind of get started if they have a 4-start. Because, you know, once they haven't had their first turn of Buddy Puffins, it's gone. So if they've had a slow start, they're keeping that slow start. And once again, once you remove them from the board, they're probably staying there till the end. And with the burn, once again, you can one-shot Zoroarks pretty simply, end of game with Blood Moon or Saluna if it gets to there. With all the bosses, you can effectively go around and an active Zoroark, assuming it doesn't have the Power Glass, and target down Zoruas and play a little bit of a slower game as well, and then deal with those single Zoroark later instead of letting them all ramp and then having multiples to deal with. That being said, you can also play a game where you kind of let them get Zoroarks and you slow them down and get ahead on prizes, and then you can clean up with Bear. If they're at 2 prizes, you can kill a Zoroark with Bear. They can't one-shot Bear, and you can switch and kill a Zoroark with Bear, and you can take 4 prizes in a matter of 2 turns pretty quick, and they can't really one-shot anything besides your Magmortars, and that's just not enough for them to win the game. So I felt really comfortable going into the Zoroark matchup. Unfortunately, I didn't see any, but that's okay. Lots of decks I didn't see. I would talk about Eevee Box, but I'll be honest, I didn't test a single game against it. I don't know how it would go. Seems interesting. Angel Lighting Magmortars off the bench might be good. Taking that turn off of burn and just not killing Budew and getting burned might be bad. I really don't know. I'd maybe play a couple rounds with it and see kind of how it plays out. But yeah, I have nothing on Eevee Box, I'll be completely honest. Very similar for Tera Box, to be honest. I think I played 1 game against Tera Box, and that was the first round of the regionals, and it was very close. Right up into the very end, Budew was keeping me in it, and he just kind of hard drew a Briar off of an Iono, and there was not much I could really do. I feel like item lock doesn't really hurt that deck a ton. Ban Rotom just kind of sets everything up for you, and then Crispin just kind of does the rest of the work, and Wellspring can kind of create some situations where it's, taking 3 prize turns. If they're running Vitality Band, it can remove a Magmortar and a Magmar, it can remove a Budew and a Magmar. I didn't want to see a ton of them, put it that way. I was kind of hoping to avoid a lot of the Tera Box for the most part, but there's always that item lock kind of evens things out sometimes. If they struggle to start, you can just steal games because they simply can't play, or they can't play Pheasantipity, right? So I'm glad I only seen 1 though. I'd say I've been working on this deck for about pretty close to right after Journey Together came out. I kind of was thinking about the idea, but kind of put it into paper probably 5-6 weeks ago probably, and really started like heavily testing and working on it. I put it into deck form and started playing it at local events probably about 3 weeks ago, a month ago. And yeah, I didn't get to play a ton of them, but I really liked how it felt. I also really wanted to test the overall community of players. I feel like so many people in this game right now test lines and test known decks that I felt entering the tournament was something that nobody knew what my list was, nobody knew what my strategy was, nobody really knew what I wanted to do, was actually a huge benefit. It really was. People were making misplays unintentionally all game long, and that's not their fault. But it just went to show how mapped out Pokemon can be. And sometimes you just kind of got to trust. If you feel like it's playing well and you're getting those games, just kind of maybe trust it. And I was fortunate enough to do that this time, and it worked out for me. I would have liked to have finished the event. Some personal stuff came up and I wasn't able to. So I made the responsible adult decision to cut my run short, but still very much appreciate how much people have embraced and cared about my list, and how much overwhelming support I've gotten over it, to be completely honest. As a deck builder, it's pretty awesome. It's something I've always kind of wanted to achieve, and it kind of feels a little bit of that. I very much appreciate everybody taking their time to look over my list and listen to my thoughts. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody may have, or explain any reasonings on why I played something or why I didn't play something. Because yeah, I tested a couple other really interesting ideas too that I just cut out of the deck that I think are pretty fun, but I'll leave that for another time.